Everybody to the Board of Education meeting. It is August 23rd at 7:30, our regular Board of Ed, so welcome back after the summer. Just real quick, the typical public service announcement. The Open Public Meeting Statement. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975 announcement, I wish to announce that the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with this provision of the Act, the School District of the Chatham's Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, place thereof posted at the Board Administrative Offices, sent to the clerks of the Chatham Borough, the Chatham Township, the Library of the Chathams, the Chatham Courier, the Daily Record, the Star Ledger, and the TAP. Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind taking attendance?
Mr. Gilfillan. Mr. Arnick. Ms. Ciccarelli. Here. Ms. Clark. Here. Mr. Del Sandro. Here. Ms. Kenny.
Here.
Mr. Ryan.
Here.
Mr. Smith. Ms. Weber.
Here.
7 present and accounted for.
Excellent. If you're able, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is right behind Dr. LaSousa. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. So I know we all want to get right to it. This is the only comment that I'm going to have is this is absolutely my most favorite time of the year, only followed up by graduation night. So I'm thrilled to have starting school again, the kids coming back for a full day, full activities. It's just, compared to this time last year, we're in such a better place. So I'm going to pass it directly off to Dr. LaSousa, who's going to steer us through the year.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Weber. Yes, it is an exciting time of the year. I've written fairly extensively over the past week or so about the plans for school and about some other issues, so I'm not going to restate all of that right now. What I'll say is that the schools are by and large ready to go and welcome students back. I've been in and out of the schools today and over the past several days last week, and we are looking to be in pretty good shape. We've had a number of orientations and open houses for students who are new to the district, students who are moving to a new school, meaning from 5th grade to 6th grade or 8th grade to 9th grade. And we had our new staff in last week, and all of those orientations and activities have gone quite well. There's a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of energy for starting the school year and getting back to normal. Tomorrow we have our entire staff coming back on Tuesday and Wednesday. So tomorrow and the following day we'll engage in professional learning and other activities to get ready for the year. Our enrollment right now stands at 3763, which is a decline of about 120 students from last year, and that owes principally to the fact that we had 360 seniors graduate in June, and we have 235 students enrolled in 1st grade. And I'll remind you, we also have smaller class sizes in grades 2 and 3. So the enrollment dip that Richard Grip had noted for us a couple years back has come to pass. So we're keeping an eye on that. I'll mention a couple of other items. Once we get schools up and running and off the ground, this year we will have to administer a standardized assessment, not in our K through 3 schools, but in our grades 4 through 12, Lafayette Middle School and High School. That's because part of New Jersey's waiver from the standardized testing last spring required New Jersey to implement a statewide standardized test in the fall. So that window will open in mid-September and close in mid-October. So families who have students in those schools will receive information about that once the year begins. We're also about 2 weeks away from the 20th anniversary of the attacks on September 11th. September 11th is a Saturday, I believe, and so on the Friday before, we will observe a moment of silence in all of our schools, and students will receive instruction that is age-appropriate and discussion that is age-appropriate regarding the events of that day. So I likely will send a letter out district-wide before we get there, because we know that some students have personal situations and have been affected personally by 9/11. So we want to give everyone a heads up that that will be going on in the classrooms. And then, as I've written, we're ready with respect to the health protocols that we have to follow according to the New Jersey Department of Health and New Jersey Department of Education. Our principals are ready to receive the staff and the teachers tomorrow, and then a week from today, at this point in time, we will have completed the first day of school. So we're all very excited about that. And that's it for my report for now.
Just a quick question, Mike, on the standardized assessment. How many days is that going to cover,
I think it varies.
roughly?
Karen can weigh in on that over here.
4 through 10 for ELA. 4 through 8 mathematics. 5, 9, 12 for science. My question is is it going to take up one day, a half a day? Oh, 50 minutes. Okay, so we don't have to rearrange the schedule significantly. The kids aren't going to lose additional instruction. This is yet another mandate that's shoved down our throats that we didn't ask for.
The principals are working on that. The high school is the biggest challenge for us because of the number of small group instructional spaces that we need to utilize. So
Okay.
it's possible we will have to amend the schedule a few days and have delayed openings, but we haven't quite finalized the details of that yet.
Okay, we could cover that in curriculum then when you have the answers to that. Obviously, we want to minimize any interruption in instruction.
Exactly.
Does anybody else have any questions for Dr. LaSousa on any of those topics or anything else?
I'll just take the opportunity to say also, couple of areas we're still struggling with from a staffing perspective is in support staff, paraprofessional staff, and also some long-term leave replacement teachers. Ms. Grant and her team have done a very good job of engaging in outreach and trying to be out in the community, talking with people and bringing additional folks on board. But if there's anyone watching the meeting right now or in attendance here who's interested in serving as a substitute or a paraprofessional, they can visit our website and they can reach out to Ms. Grant and get the ball rolling. That would be helpful.
Or any college students that might be home and learning virtually, if they can fit it into their schedule, that would be great as well. Excellent. Thank you, Dr. LaSousa. Mr. DeQuell, moving over to you for the business administrator's report.
Sure. The first item I'd like to report is that on transportation, this year the district is, moving forward, and all of the bus route details will be populated into Genesis. The parents will be able to access them via the parent tab for their child. So we will no longer be mailing bus cards, and the tab was populated today. So the information is out there. It may take a little bit of a challenge to find it for the first time, but it's there. And as a reminder, please have your child out at the stop 10 minutes before the anticipated pickup time. For the board member election, for the borough, there are 2 candidates for the 1 3-year term, our incumbent Ann Ciccarelli and Laura Friedenfeldt. And there are 2 candidates for the 1-year term, the incumbent Chris D'Alessandro and Brian Hargrove. For the township, there are 4 candidates for the 2 3-year terms, the 2 incumbents, Michelle Clark and Lotta Kenny, and Kyle Roberts and James Now. Thank you for the applause for Ms. Kenny and Ms. Clark. On the construction update, all the schools have been shined, polished, and ready for the students and the teachers. Everything is clean and put back and operational. On the Cougar Fieldhouse restroom, the project was completed and the restroom has been open now for about a week and a half. So I believe the football team and other teams have been using it. On the Washington roof, the contractor has been working and is scheduled to finish this week. On the high school roof, the media center roof, we're being pledged will be done over the 4-day Labor Day weekend. And the other sections of the high school roof will be done once school starts after hours. And on the middle school, we're still trying to get the contractor to give us a schedule, and all of that work will be done after hours at school. And that's all I have unless there's any questions.
So just to be explicit, Peter, there's going to be no contractors working on any school building projects, interior or exterior, after school starts, during school hours?
There may be slight work, but nothing evasive. They may be putting up the metal trim, but nothing that will interfere with instruction.
Again, you know I go nuts about safety, having people walking around the,
Yeah, that's,
Hallway.
safety is the priority. That's why all the bulk of the heavy work will be done after hours. For most cases, the high school or middle school after 3, for the elementaries after 3:30, 4 o'clock, once everybody's cleared out.
And-
Well,
and-
there is nothing at the elementaries, it's middle and high school, sorry.
and they're going to check in at the front office, get a lanyard, visitor's pass?
We can have them do that because they won't even be in the building. They'll just be outside, but we can have them check in.
I thought you just said there's going to be people inside doing trim.
No, the trim work around the roof, nothing inside.
Oh,
All of the
okay.
roof work is on the exterior of the building.
Okay, no
Nobody
in-
goes inside.
No interior?
Right.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And, yeah, please remind the contractors that none of their employees are to be here. I don't care if they finish another job early, they're not to be on school property until the students leave the campus.
Will do.
Okay, excellent. Any questions for Peter? No, excellent. All right, we're going to move along. Ms. Ciccarelli for personnel.
So we met on August 4th and just discussed any of the openings that we might have for the upcoming school year. And, just the status of our staff overall. And we are meeting again on September 8th, correct?
Excellent. Any questions for Ann or anybody on personnel or Ms. Grant? Nope. Excellent. Okay, thanks. Curriculum, Ms. Kenny. Oh, sorry, Michelle, you're going to do it thank you.
Curriculum met on August 4th as well, and we just discussed some operational procedures for the return to school. And we discussed the mandated state testing that Dr. Lisusa mentioned in his opening report. And that was a quick meeting. That was pretty much it.
Excellent, thank you. Finance and Facilities, Mr. Gilfillan.
Yes, we met on July 28th. Discussed a number of different topics. One was the issues around school opening. That discussion ended up being pretty much a moot point as the executive order was put in place soon thereafter. Washington Ever boiler room repairs, if you guys remember back, $85,000. We petitioned the Commissioner of Education to use emergency reserve funds. We were granted that permission. We discussed the food services. The district will now be reimbursed for all meals provided to all students in grade K to 8 that choose to take a standard reimbursable meal. Capital work, Pete already walked through that. And then we once again started to do a little bit more work in terms of the potential referendum that was canceled due to the pandemic, looking at a number of different issues. We will handle this in the exact same method as we did last time in terms of communication, transparency, community input, where we had listed things by individual questions versus just an overall referendum. Look for more on that. We discussed a number of different things. Most importantly is some facility upgrades in terms of athletic facilities and a number of different things internally that need to be finished off after pushing them back, such as middle school interior improvements, HVAC replacements, et cetera. But we have not committed to this yet. Again, we're going to restrict this to a very small ask. We will focus on opportunities where we will receive the most net benefit from debt service relief from the state in order to pass that savings along to the taxpayer. But do understand that this is in discussion at the Finance Committee level. And we meet again, not sure.
That's okay.
Let's go.
September. Does anybody have any questions for Matt or anybody on finance? Any of the facility questions? More to follow on the... That's okay, Peter. You good? Okay, excellent. Thank you. So the man of the hour, policy, Mr. Mike Ryan.
Policy was lucky enough to meet twice since the last Board of Ed meeting. On July 28th, we discussed vaccine protocols for staff. We discussed the school openings, which Matt referred to as being moot at that point. We were preparing for what policies we needed to initiate based on what we were being told at that time, which has since changed. And we also discussed the possibilities for home instruction for those students that were required to receive home instruction due to a quarantine related to COVID. And we met again on August 11th. We discussed a tuition student that wanted to come back to the school district. We discussed testing for staff and some potential complications related to insurance, whether or not it would be covered under a mandated test. We discussed masking, which we'll discuss in some of the policies that we have being rescinded and adopted tonight. We discussed procedures for mask refusal and how we would treat that in terms of code of conduct violations versus dress code violations. That's it.
Okay, great. Well, let's not bury the lead there. Let's talk a little bit about the masking. So I know it's on the policy tonight, so Mike, correct me where I go astray here.
Yep,
The current policy in place is from last year where we're masked all the time, indoors, outdoors.
indoor and outdoors, and there are stricter quarantine requirements in that policy as well that have since gone away in the new policy that we're adopting tonight.
Right. And so originally, the policy was going to present a policy that was more indicative of our environment and our schools, but then it got pulled because of Executive 251,
Exactly.
which rendered you pretty much helpless. You had no...
Yeah,
no-
we were preparing for the possibility of having a mask optional situation if we were allowed to do so, based on what we were learning from the state health officials and the government. And that was on July 28th, we were preparing those policies, and those possibilities have been taken away from us at this point by the executive order.
Right. So it's not a matter of following the science, it's a matter of following the law in this instance.
Yes.
And just as a reminder to the board members, I guess more than anything, that we don't have the authority to break the law. We don't have the authority to put the residents and taxpayers in a situation where they can be burdened financially, specifically if we lost state aid, if we lost any of the grant money, if there was litigation. I mean, we know from past litigation, even if all the lights are green and we win everything, it's still tens of thousands of dollars. It could also result in criminal charges for the board members, loss of license. I think almost everybody on the board has some type of professional license that would be in jeopardy if they were charged with a disorderly person's effect. So, you know, Mike, I have to thank you and the policy committee because you put a lot of time into the more flexible mask optional policy, and then it was completely taken away from you, you know, as of August 9th. So we're hoping that...
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, but this is how we're starting the year, right, Mike? This is just how we're starting the year, because that's how the law states. We will change as we are able. As the conditions change, we can also change.
We had to implement this policy this evening before the school year started, or the old policy would remain in effect.
Okay,
So we had to rescind the old policy 1648 and update it with
right,
1648-1.
okay. So, great, thank you again. I have to thank the policy committee because they spent as much time as they could in ensuring that it was the least restrictive policy allowed under the law. So at least
Correct.
we're moving in the right direction, maybe not ideal, but, you know, it's where we are right now with the executive order.
Hopefully, it's very temporary.
Very temporary.
We'll see.
And if we had to, we'll, you know, if you don't mind, if the governor changes it, pulls it, rescinds it, allows more control within the districts, you know.
And by the way, the new policy still has exemptions in it, right, that can be used for medical purposes and such, IEPs or 504s.
Right.
Those exemptions are still in the new policy. It's directly from the executive order.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you for your hard work on that. Thank you to the rest of the policy committee. Any questions for Mike on, Michelle?
Mike, the policy that you were working on prior to the executive order that you were amending, can we have that queued up and ready to go should things change a week after school starts, 2 weeks after, the way the executive order reads is that it's the start of the school year, but there's no definitive, if things do change, I want to make sure that we are queued up and ready to go.
We
to offer.
can pivot to a new policy very quickly by calling a policy committee meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And you have to have, because it would be an emergency, we would go right to first, second, and third reading and adoption at the next Board of Ed meeting.
Perfect, thank you.
Excellent. Any other comments, questions for anybody on the committee? I'm pointing to Mike because he's the chair, but anybody else on the committee that wants to weigh in?
Did I miss anything, Dr. Mike?
No, I don't think so. I think the direction that the conversations were taking were to aim for a mask optional environment, or at least the potential for a mask optional environment, grades 7 through 12, where the vaccination rate at the time we were having those conversations, I think, was 76%. It's gone up since then. And then at the lower grades, up to grade 6, would have been mask required based on the AAP and CDC guidance.
And I think the most
That's where
effective
we
thing...
left off.
Whoops, I'm sorry, Mike.
Just because that's where we left off before the executive order came.
Right.
And I think the most effective for the residents in the audience and those listening, the most effective way is to contact the governor. There's a march on Trenton tomorrow you can join. You can email the governor. You can email the staff. Our hands are tied, but that doesn't mean there's about 50 people in the audience. Your hands are not tied. You can write letters. You can go to Trenton. One Board of Ed isn't going to change it, but maybe there's, again, 50 people in the audience, or maybe there's 400 people watching. But I would suggest that you call Trenton, call your legislation. Matt, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Did you have something you want to add?
I want to make sure everyone understands what Mike is saying is that, as much as me personally don't like this policy, I don't like what the state is coming down on top of us with, we have no say or choice in this matter. So this is, us implementing this policy is what we could do with the best interests of the kids, with the most amount of flexibility and the least onus on the kids. We went as far as we were allowed to go, but this is as far as we are allowed to go. So we may not like it, but nothing we can do. So I know public commentary is coming up next, but you just need to understand is that this is being forced down upon us from above. And please understand, coming up and either discussing or trying to talk how the Board of Ed can change this, we can't. Okay, our hands are tied. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that going in. We were always, and we just said this in previous board meetings, whereby we were going to go to the most flexible options, which was mask optional, until that choice was taken away from us. Taken away, okay? So we don't have an ability to do anything that defies this order. And this order definement, and it was very well spelled out in Mr. LaSousa's email today, of all the different people who, if you defy this order, with the risks you assume by defying the order. And there's really not anyone, there's no benefit to anybody to defy the order. From a personal standpoint at all. There's pretty serious ramifications for defying the order. So, we had said 2 meetings ago that we were more than willing to support the initiative to reduce the onus of executive orders, what we felt was coming down, and throw my support behind a letter to the governor. And I continue to do so. I'm not a believer in it, but that doesn't matter. So, please understand is that coming here today, and if you think, looking at us, we're not the bad people. We're not the people implementing this we're not the people responsible for this executive order. That's all been done up at the top. So I think Mike and the team did a great job in trying to, and I want to make sure you guys understand is that, if we don't pass this resolution tonight, that means kids have to wear masks outdoors when they come back to school, right? That's going to be rescinded. There's things in terms of lunch, a lot of different things that we are allowed to do that it's extremely important to make sure that this is implemented tonight so that flexibility is available to our children come first day of school. So I just want to make sure that it was across to everybody in this town, and Mike's email today was fantastic in spelling it out, is that this is an order that we cannot defy. We can protest it, but we cannot defy it. So those are my thoughts.
I think we're in a better place too, Matt, because if the kids are wearing masks, last year, I don't know how many hundreds of kids had to quarantine. I don't want to say unnecessarily, but in effect unnecessarily, because they happened to be sitting next to, a classmate. Hundreds of kids, some of them multiple times. It was incredibly frustrating. With this policy, if the kids are wearing masks, even if the kid next to them tests positive, they don't have to quarantine. So these kids will not be out of school nearly as much as they were. So I also think that's a game changer. It'll definitely help the operation of the school. Kids will not miss nearly as much school. I mean, there were a few kids that got hit 4 times because they were in close contact with somebody. So I think that's a game changer. If they can take any solace in wearing masks, that will be one of them. That will be a positive effect of wearing masks indoors. Anybody else have any thoughts or comments? Oh, go ahead, Mike. Nick, can you turn his mic on?
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing. As everyone mentioned, we can't help the situation that we're in right now in terms of the mandate. However, we can recognize that, both sides of the issue, have legitimate concerns, wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. We should be hoping and striving for, not being divided by the issue, because we can't do anything about it at this point. It's a mandate. It is what it is. But let's not, label each other if we can avoid it.
That's an excellent
Thank
point.
you.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Mike. We've received just as many emails requesting that we wear masks than we have to eliminate the mask mandate. But it's irrelevant because it's taken out of our hands, regardless of which side of the argument you fall on. It's no longer in our hands. But thank you, Mike. That's a good point. Thank you for reminding us of that. Any other questions? I think it's good dialogue. More to follow as the conditions change. Excellent. So we're going to move on to liaison reports. I definitely have one for the Performing Arts Boosters. I just want to thank all the Performing Arts Boosters out there and everybody that supports the performing arts. They've donated just over $3,300. And again, the performing arts supports not just the high school, but K to 12, all of the entire district. And that $3,300 is going to go to pay for a new conductor's podium, a storage bin, a costume rack, iPad page turner, a Hoberman sphere, which I had to look up, a piano bench, an electric piano, and orchestra folders that are imprinted. So I can't thank the boosters enough for this donation. Again, it goes directly to help the kids and improve their programming. So this is fantastic. Thank you very much. If you want to learn more about the Performing Arts Boosters, they have information on our website, and they do meet monthly. So thank you for that. Any additional? I know Lotta doesn't have any. No additional liaisons? Excellent. Peter, before we move on to the minutes, approving the minutes from the July 12th meeting, Michelle was out that meeting, and she just wanted to make a correction for the record on a statement. So I'm just going to pass the mic over to Michelle for a moment. So if you could just take notes, because we want to correct a misstatement from the previous meeting.
I just want to clarify something that was stated on the July 12th meeting during public commentary. A resident of Chatham Borough, Libby Hilsenrath, used my name in an inadequate statement about something that I did not say. And she dated back to July 13th, 2020 meeting, indicating that I said that white Christian authors should be removed from our curriculum. I never said that. I encourage anyone who would like to see or hear what I did say. It was in response to public commentary, and it was advocating for professional development for our teachers to be able to have challenging conversations with students at all ages regarding difficult issues such as white privilege, relating to race, and so on. This was taken out of context, and Ms. Hilsenrath used it 1 year later to push her own agenda. So I wanted to stand. It's at 1 minute, 1 hour, 59 minutes in that meeting, if anyone cares to watch the whole meeting or just my comment. And just to be clear, this is the same individual who filed a meritless lawsuit against our district. And I did ask several months ago for the business administrator to get an audit on the cost to the district. And the out-of-pocket cost for that lawsuit was $65,584. This is the equivalent of a first-year teacher with a master's at $62,000. So this is real money, and I feel like the public should know, taxpayers should know, and I wanted to stand that I never said what she said I did say. She took advantage of my absence on that date, and those of you who watch meetings and attend meetings probably see that I never miss meetings. And I went back and I looked, I missed 2 meetings last year. One in November for a professional reason, and this past July for a personal reason. So I just want the records to stand. Anyone interested, again, it was July 13th, 2020, and it was at 1 hour, 59 minutes. So thank you for listening, and thank you for the correction.
Okay, great. Thanks, Michelle. So then I'm going to make a motion, excuse me. I'm going to make a motion to move the public and executive sessions for July 12th. Besides Michelle, Peter, who needs to abstain?
Mr. Del Sandro needs to abstain on the executive, not on the regular.
Okay, so let's do the public meeting first. Go ahead, Peter.
All right. Motion. The regular meeting from July 12th, Mr. Gilfillan. Ms. Ciccarelli.
Yes.
Ms. Clark.
Abstain.
Mr. Del Sandro.
No.
No.
Yes.
Regular meeting.
Oh, sorry.
Although you can abstain if you want.
I'll take that as a yes. Ms. Kenny.
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes.
The minutes from July 12th, as corrected by Ms. Clark, pass 601.
Excellent, thank you. Don't be peer pressured by Peter. Excellent. Okay, Peter, then for the executive session on July 12th?
For the executive session on July 12th, Mr. Gilfillan.
Yes.
Ms. Ciccarelli.
Yes.
Ms. Clark.
Abstain.
Mr. Del Sandro. Ms. Kenny.
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes.
They pass 502.
Excellent, great, thank you. Okay, so we have our first opportunity for public commentary. Notice of the public comments. Hearing the citizens during the public commentary section of the agenda is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about which issues are or are not topics scheduled for the current meeting. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers will be asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. If you could sign in as well, there's a sign-in sheet. Sign in ahead of time if you can, a couple of people ahead, just so that we can move the meeting along. And please be courteous to each other. And I just want to thank everybody for wearing a mask today. I know some of you would prefer not to, but I appreciate you adhering to the executive order and modeling appropriate behavior for our students. So nobody likes wearing a mask, so thank you for adhering to the executive order. If you could introduce yourself, that would be fantastic. And the floor is yours. Again, just a reminder, it's not a back and forth. We're going to let everybody be heard. And if we can address anything further than what we said, we will. If not, we'll just move on with the regular agenda. So the floor is yours. If you could introduce yourself, that would be great. And
All right. Hello. I am Brenda Droker, and I'm a class of 2021 graduate from Chatham High School. I'm here today to address some comments made at prior meetings about the curriculum. I read President Weber's and Superintendent Lasousa's responses to parents' concerns about critical race theory being taught at Chatham. They said that the curriculum does not promote an ideology, but presents a balanced approach of viewpoints. Here are my experiences at Chatham High School. My teachers have been caring and talented, creating an overall positive experience for the 4 years I attended school. I greatly respect them all and the subjects they teach. However, in some cases, it is clear which political party and ideology the teacher favors. Students should not know the political views of any teachers. However, I have seen some teachers communicate their views through encouraging or discouraging particular viewpoints during discussions or through course materials selected or omitted for study. Here is an example reading list selected from my senior year AP English Language and Composition class. Nickel and Dimed by Barbara Ehrenreich. Ehrenreich is an honorary chair of the Democratic Socialists of America. Savage Inequalities by Jonathan Kozol. Kozel's work is prominent on the critical reading blog of socialistworker.org. Fast Food Nation by Eric Schlosser earned a glowing review from the Socialist Workers' Party in Britain. I noticed a pattern in the points of view of these books along with other works presented, such as John Kenneth Galbraith's treatise on Keynesian economics or David Foster Wallace's Condemnations of Business in Consider the Lobster. Most of the materials used in class were anti-American, anti-capitalist, or pro-big government. No opposing views were presented that would have allowed students to effectively analyze or critique the arguments or determine whether the rhetoric was genuine. When discussing rhetorical techniques, we had to accept the socialist assumptions made in these books. This is not how the AP website describes this course. That website states, the AP English Language and Composition course focuses on reading, analyzing, and writing about imaginative literature, fiction, poetry, drama, from various periods. But while claiming only to teach analysis and composition, the selected texts advocated one point of view about our country. Classroom discussions were introduced as analyses of rhetorical techniques, but turned into political discussions about capitalism, America, or the role of our government. As 17 and 18-year-olds, we were asked to debate the books I mentioned with no opportunity to learn about any opposing viewpoint. When I tried expressing opposition, my attempts were weak. I found myself debating not only the books, but some of my classmates. I was so confused by the messages in Fast Food Nation that I actually sought counterarguments and sent an email to a college professor, the author of The Problem with Socialism, who wrote a blog debunking the theses in not only this book, but Nickel and Dimed as well. I thanked him for providing the counterargument that gave me the clarity I needed to think critically. He replied to me, "Always remember that it is up to you to educate yourself, and you need not rely exclusively on uneducated socialist frauds like the one you mentioned." I acknowledge Superintendent L'Souza's comment that the school district does not indoctrinate students, but I'm not sure of the intent of certain individual teachers. That is not right. While my teachers have never directly pushed me into a way of thinking, the one-sidedness of the material I experienced in this class
Sorry. If you could sum up, I just want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to be heard tonight.
Oh, yes, of course.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, Brendan.
An important step to assure a balanced curriculum is to make the curriculum of the English and Social Studies departments public. Not just the general profiles listed on the webpage, but the actual books, sources, and class materials should be publicly viewable on Schoology or Google Drive to anyone interested. If I had known that the AP Language and Composition class was going to read texts all skewed towards one point of view, I would have instead taken the honors class where they read Hamlet. Make the curriculums of
You
the
need to
English...
finish up, please.
Okay, yes, thank you. This is how you can prove to the Chatham community that the curriculum is designed to teach students how to think instead of what to think. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tim High. I've lived in Chatham since 2006. I currently have children in every level of Chatham schools, and I support mask optional at schools. This point is not moot. Your hands are not tied. An executive order is not a law. A law is passed by the state legislature. It's not just something we write down as the governor. The board has the authority to decide what the exceptions are. You cannot hide behind the executive order. So sorry, that's just a small rebuttal to what's already been said and said over and over and over by all of you up there. We say follow the science. That's the mantra. Not follow the fear, not follow the emotions. Everywhere we go, masks are recommended, but optional. Yet we mandate limiting kids' oxygen intake for 8 hours a day. Dr. Anthony Fauci himself says follow the science. This is important. He said in June of this year to Chuck Todd of NBC. It's very dangerous, Chuck, because a lot of what you're seeing, quite frankly, are attacks on science because of the things that I have spoken about consistently from the very beginning that have been fundamentally based on science. But what did he say at the very beginning? In an email to Obama-era Health and Human Services Secretary Sylvia Burwell in February 2020, the typical mask you buy in the drugstore is not really effective at keeping out the virus, which is small enough to pass through the material. These are Dr. Fauci's own words. This was science at the very beginning. In August 2021, very recently, with host Hugh Hewitt on the radio, Dr. Fauci said, "It's not comfortable, obviously, for children to wear masks, particularly the younger children." He then admitted he didn't know whether or not long-term effects of children wearing masks would be dangerous. Hopefully, this will be a temporary thing. Temporary enough that it doesn't have any lasting negative impact on them. So Dr. Fauci hopes that there's no lasting impact on children by putting masks on them that he himself said are useless. Think about that. Study by the CDC put up in May 2020 after COVID had begun, disposable masks, also known as surgical masks or loose-fitting
You have
devices
30 seconds.
that were designed to be worn by medical personnel to protect accidental contamination of patient wounds and to protect the wearer against splashes or sprays of bodily fluids. Our systematic review found no significant effect of face masks on transmission for laboratory-confirmed influenza. Why do masks not work? Medical masks, much less cloth masks made by Old Navy. This right here, this big green circle is a human hair, the diameter. This tiny thing that no one can see is a micron. COVID-19 virus is 1/10 of a micron.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Now, actually, my wife signed up, and if she would, she could yield her time to me. Thank you.
Then she needs to speak. Your time is up, sir.
No, that's fine.
Sir, your time is up, please. We want everyone to have a chance to speak.
And I'm speaking for her. She's too nervous.
Here she comes. She can speak for herself, sir. Here she comes. Go ahead. Wow.
Sir, please, your time is up.
My time is not up. She signed up for time. She is yielding it to me.
Okay, sir, your time is up. Please cooperate so we can keep the meeting going.
Sir, please don't disrupt the proceedings of a public meeting.
I'm not trying to disrupt. I'm trying to get a message across.
We
It
hear your
needs to be
message.
said. Okay? You just want to leave it to time, short amounts of time, that no one can get across
I
their
want
message.
everybody to be able to be heard. Why don't you loop back around online after everybody's had an opportunity?
Can I read it? I don't know where do you want me to start.
She could read your comments. She can read it, and
I
she
don't know
will.
where he was, it's a little destructive.
That's fine. We'll just.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Where do you want me to start?
I just want everybody to have an opportunity to be heard.
All right, then we'll let someone else go next, and we'll regroup.
Remember, we all live here. Let's all just comport ourselves with appropriate behavior.
Hello, I'm Lauren Peterson from the Township. I'm back again despite being ridiculed and patronized on social media as a real housewife of Chatham and being shunned by other mothers in this town after the last time I spoke out against mandatory masking. I'm here because only my husband and I know what's best for our children, not the peanut gallery on social media, not the parents in town, not the governor, and not the Board of Ed. It's a lot easier to go along with the mandates than it is to stand here and object, but I do so because that is my calling as a mother. This is my rising fifth grader who suffered from headaches and migraines throughout last school year as a direct result of prolonged mask wearing. He is nervous to speak himself, so I will speak for him as my right, privilege, and duty as his parent. He would like to ask the board and Dr. LaSousa to do everything in their power to make masks a choice this coming school year. You mentioned that there are exemptions in place that should help mitigate this. Last month, our family physician wrote him a medical exemption from masks, which was then denied by the district physician. People here know how hard it is to obtain a medical exemption. I would like to know who is this district physician who has never laid eyes on my son to deny the medical advice of our family doctor. How is this not a blatant overreach of the district? The solution from the district was to allow him a few extra mask breaks throughout the day. Will he need to be pulled out of the classroom and isolated, potentially missing out on learning in order to take those mask breaks? Who is determining how much time he is allotted for uninhibited breathing? This is not an acceptable solution. Masking our children should be left up to the discretion of the parent. I will not mask my 4 children for a full day of school again to provide others with a false sense of security. I implore the Board of Ed to get creative, as other districts have done, without fear of retaliation from the state. Do what is right by the children. You said it yourself that this executive order is not following the science. The current policy for the coming school year is not in the best interest of many children, including my own. Therefore, we are unenrolling our children from the school district of the Chathams.
Oops. Good evening. Rez Estevez from the Township on Southern Boulevard. Brenda, first speaker, I'm proud of you. I filed a New Jersey Oprah request for disclosures relating to curriculum and teacher planning for one class, and it was deemed to be overly broad. So I'll be pushing back on that, but Brenda, wherever you are, yeah. Now, let's get to the task on this executive order. The board, the administration avers that it's absolutely limp-wristed, impotent before the deep, powerful force of this executive order. This thing is Swiss cheese. It is subject to interpretation. There are school districts that are choosing to interpret this executive order to enable parents, such as the immediately prior speaker, to act as parents and make decisions in the best interest of their children in light of the medical advice of their family physician advisor. Okay? That's what we have elected you to do, to stand up for our children. Instead, I see you folding the knee to governmental overreach, and I could not possibly more be disgusted. I would protest vomit, but it's not very polite. The governor is taking away our freedoms, and you're simply saying, no can do. We're just a week before this. Pick up a spine and choose to examine this and interpret it in a way that is more supportive of us parents and our children, okay? Look to the example that the Middletown School District has chosen to take to follow the letter of this Swiss cheese thing and enable generously exemptions for parents. In closing, all of you, yay. Oh, expect to see lots of people to drop out, transition to homeschooling, and any child who chooses to engage in civil disobedience, I'll be backing you up, dog.
I'm Laura Friedenfeldt. I live in the borough. I have 2 kids at the high school, and I serve on the Board of Health in the borough. But tonight I'm here in my capacity as a historian of medicine. And as a historian in this field, I know that epidemics do horrendous damage, and not just to our health. They also are very destructive to social cohesion and can lead to social disintegration. They're also, as a historian, I also know that public health measures are remarkably difficult to put into place effectively. So this year has left me in awe of how well we have done in Chatham, that we've got most of our population who can be vaccinated, and in particular, our schools have kept the kids healthy and in school learning in a way that is not outmatched anywhere. I mean, we've done a remarkable job here. And I know a lot of that is because we have a leg up due to our affluence and high levels of education here. But even compared to similar districts in other places in the country and in New Jersey, we just have done a remarkable job. And I want to congratulate all of you for what you've done to lead this and suggest that this record of really doing a remarkable job at keeping the kids in school while keeping them healthy leads me to think we should do more of the same, which is to cooperate really effectively with our excellent health officers that we have in the township and in the borough, to craft sensible, thoughtful policies, to be nimble about adapting those policies to conditions on the ground, and to do this within the range of the options available to us, given the advice of our State Health Board. So thank you for what you've done. Keep it up, and I hope we will be through this soon. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Wilcox, North Passaic Avenue, Chatham Borough. I'm going to read my prepared remarks, but I was a little concerned with some of the things I heard in the discussion earlier. I don't frequent Board of Education meetings. Sometimes I watch online. I pay attention to issues that are important to me, but in general, I tend to be happy with the work of our elected representatives on this board and the administration as well. I think in this regard, I represent a lot of people in Chatham who aren't particularly engaged, but still care generally and are happy with how things have been managed. I'm here because I'm shaken from my complacency by the demands of a vocal minority who want to see masks be optional in school at a time when we have rising rates of infection, even among those who are vaccinated. I've listened to these arguments, and I've applied something that I hear is taught in our schools: critical thinking. Critical thinking requires that I use logic and reason, and I also consider the validity of the arguments that are being made in favor of optional masks. I could only find a couple that are specifically relevant to children in school, and that is that they are to some degree unhealthy for them, either physically or emotionally, or that it inhibits the quality of education and learning. When I weigh these things against my family's civic duty to prevent disease from spreading in our community, I find it easy to say, please, continue to follow the guidelines. My children will comply with what is required of them at school. Please continue to make decisions that will prevent my children and other children from being a vector of a dangerous disease. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Phil Uncle, Chatham Township. And I want to mention that I just came back yesterday from dropping off my older twin at university. Plan to drop off my next twin at university later this week, and have an older daughter who graduated from Chatham High as well just a couple of years ago. And I often tell my kids, you should stay in touch with your teachers because they do so much work for you, and you remember them and you think to call them, but you don't. I know I never did, and I still feel badly about that. So this is my attempt to come back from the other side and to talk a little bit about my reflections on my kids' journey now through the school and after high school. And I think the number one priority for all of you and for the teachers and administrators in our schools is to keep our kids safe. That's the number one priority. And it's been a hard time during COVID, but with masks and social distancing, you kept my kids safe, and that's of utmost importance. And so tonight, when you talk about common sense and reasonable approaches to keeping our kids safe, I support you for that. Because it's not easy. It's not easy to sit up there and take a lot of grief, but I support you in that, and I think many people in my community support you in that. On the question of the curriculum, I was with my son and I was walking through the college bookstore at JMU, and I was looking at all the books that are being offered for the kids for all their classes. And it was remarkable, as I looked through a bunch of them, that a lot of those were the same books my kids were bringing home in high school. And we talked a lot about those books and those topics. And I was really proud of my school district and our school, that our kids are so well prepared, and my kids are so well prepared for college because they've read so many of those books that I see on the bookshelves at the university. And when we think about our curriculum, I want to say, I'm proud to be an American. I'll say it again, I'm proud to be an American. Yet I'm also mindful that my country has a long and difficult and tragic, sometimes, relationship in areas of social justice and racial justice. And I expect my school district to teach that history forcefully, truthfully, and also hopefully. Our children deserve that, and I support you in your teaching. Thank you.
Good evening. Jane Devlin. My nieces and nephew already graduated from the school district of the Chathams. I recently moved to a neighboring town. I'm involved in a new friendship project which consumes my energy and time. So all things considered, I really didn't need to be here this evening. When I extended my appreciation, and if you will, goodbyes, at the June Board of Ed meeting, I said I would come back from time to time if matters were of big importance. I didn't expect that so soon, but here I am, Aunt Jane, again. I want to express my support for the school district of the Chathams, its administration and board, for keeping open dialogue and for doing the obvious, following the regulations, following the law. Dr. Lesouse's email, which I read as an open letter in TAP, demonstrates a school district that is using reason and ration as their compass and not emotions and misdirected dissent. Like always, the administration and governing board starts at the point, what is the best interest for the student body and for the district at large? That is their duty. Parents are not mandated to enroll or keep their sons and daughters in the school district. Lastly, I won't say which side of the mask or not mask I am on because it's no sense to fan the flames. And irrespective of what side of the fence any of us are on or the board and administration is on, I very specifically want to commend the school district of the Chathams and its administration on modeling for our youth, our students, and even some adults how to follow the rules and how to proceed with civility when they are explaining and communicating their position. Thank you for an opportunity to speak.
Hello, my name is Kyle Roberts. I'm a Chatham resident and mother of a 6-year-old rising first grader. Similar to the June 21st and July 12th Board of Ed meetings, I'm here again in opposition to the school mask mandates. Let me be clear, I am not against masks. I am against school mask mandates. I am for parental rights and a mask optional approach that allows parents the ability to make medical decisions for our own children. Just as you talked about earlier, in the last 2 board meetings, you all stated your position on masks. 51 minutes into the June 21st Board of Ed meeting, our elected board VP, Matt Gilfillan, said, quote, "It is my personal opinion that we should do away with the masks. Let's not sit back and let the state and DOH dictate what they think is correct. We should draft a resolution and make our position known. It behooves us to make our position known." 56 minutes into that same meeting, our Board of Ed president, Jill Weber, said, quote, "I agree with Matt. I hope we don't have masks in September. We'll review with our lawyers, and in parallel, we'll do a resolution." Fast forward to the July 12th meeting, 1 hour and 20 minutes into that meeting, the Board of Ed president, Jill Weber, stated, quote, "Within our power, we would like to be mask optional, as long as it's the school board's decision." She then stated, "The board has made it clear we would like to be mask optional. We made it clear the decision should be up to the parents, as long as we don't risk accreditation or funding." And while Governor Murphy has once again signed an executive order to mandate masks in school, that executive order specifies masking exemptions, which include instances when wearing a mask would inhibit an individual's health. That order, which is not law, but rather open to interpretation, does not prescribe the way a district would implement that exemption. The order gives parents the right to exempt their own child from the mask mandate. It does not require a doctor's note, just a parent's testimony to specific harm. It could not be more clear that the governor is giving freedom to the district to prescribe exemptions according to the needs of the local parents. There is nothing in the order to reflect a loss of accreditation or funding for districts that implement exemptions. Dr. LaSousa, just as your email in the TAP today referred to, there are many Board of Educations across New Jersey that are speaking out against the mask mandate, writing letters and drafting resolutions to the governor opposing Executive Order 251, with one board president from Wall Township writing, "We as a board have had some parents tell us how masks are negatively affecting their children's psychological and emotional well-being, as well as making it harder to learn and concentrate. Parents have expressed concerns over masking students for 6 hours a day." They are not trying to sidestep the executive order, as your email suggests. They are districts listening to their community and making their positions known. I'm confident it would be hard for you to sit up there and tell all these people that you haven't heard the same
Ms. Roberts,
concerns
if you
from...
could sum up, if you could
I'm
summarize.
finishing. From hundreds of parents across the community. In fact, not only have I witnessed parents sharing their concerns, but I know you've received letters and a petition signed by close to 550 Chatham residents asking for a mask optional learning environment because of concerns that we have about the continued masking
If
and
you could
abuse of
please
our children.
could you please wrap up?
Yep, so
I know you
you've-
keep saying yep, but
you have made your position and your intention
really
to
not
speak
fair to
out
the other folks
clear
that we've cut off.
multiple times now, and we, the people, have
thanks,
made
Mrs.
our
Roberts, for
position clear.
cooperating. That's swell of you.
I ask you, have you sent any
Roberts,
letters?
please.
I'm asking you, have you sent a resolution stating your opposition
Ms. Roberts,
to
we'll
exec-
answer
I'm asking you a
everything at the
question.
end, as we
Have
had
you
stated
sent
earlier.
any letters? Have you
Ms.
reached
Roberts,
out
if-
to the
if you-
governor?
Okay, go ahead. You keep going.
Have you even called the governor's office or spoken to?
You need to conclude,
Whether-
please. Your time is up.
I am. You keep
Your time is up.
interrupting me.
You've been concluding for quite some time. It's not fair to
If
the
you haven't-
the other people that want to talk.
If you haven't reached out to the governor, have you done anything to lessen the impact of the mask mandate on our children by creating outdoor learning spaces?
You all support this behavior? I find that really hard. All right. Wow. We're trying to set an example for our students.
You say your hands are tied and that we should be reaching out? Are you
Ms. Roberts,
reaching
I am
out?
begging you to please stop interrupting the proceedings and let us proceed with the public meeting. I am begging you. I don't know how else to ask. I am begging you to allow us to continue with the public meeting.
Fine, but I'm asking
I'm
you,
begging
what
you.
have you done?
We will answer at the end, as I have stated for the last 10 years.
Thank you.
Hi, Dawn Druitt, Chatham Borough. I won't be anywhere near your 3-minute time mark. I just want to say really quickly, I don't have an opinion one way or the other on the masks. I don't like wearing it, but I'll wear it if I have to. I think that's how a lot of people feel. Whatever we can do to kind of move more quickly through this pandemic and get to the end. I came here tonight just to show some support for the board and specifically for our administration and very specifically for Dr. LaSousa, who pretty much moved mountains last year to have our children in school every day or every other day if you had older kids. And I think coming here and asking all of you and asking him to take that kind of personal responsibility, a potential fine or losing your business license, I think that's really, really unfair to ask that of you guys. You're volunteers. It's a volunteer job for most of you. And secondly, somebody mentioned before about public commentary and people saying unpleasant things on social media, and that goes both ways. Because I took a comment to heart where somebody mentioned on one of the threads that anybody out there getting a vaccine and wearing a mask, you're just a bunch of sheep and you need to wake up. Well, let me tell you about this sheep. I work in our school. I work in one of our younger schools, and I got a vaccine, and I wore my mask so that I could come to school every day, so that your kids could come to school every day. So maybe just take that side of it too.
Oh, really? I'm sorry, excuse me, if I could just interrupt 1 second. Ms. Hilsenrath, would you please put a mask on? I apologize, it's part of the executive order. Thank you, I appreciate it. I apologize for interrupting the public commentary. Thanks, Libby.
Hi, my name is Rena Reyes-Lynn, and I've been a township resident for the last 24 years. I've had 3 kids go through the high school, and I have an 8th grader at this point. I'm here to show support to Dr. L'Souza and to the school board for what you have done in the last 16 months. And I am also a registered nurse. My husband is a physician. We do follow the science, but we also follow common sense. I mean, yes, today, the Pfizer vaccine has been fully approved. So wearing a mask, it's not going to kill your child. It's just going to help. And, you know, you get the vaccine or you wear a mask for the love of your neighbor, your children, and your family. So that's all I have to say. And thank you again for keeping all the kids healthy. My son had to stay home for the last 17 months because he's asthmatic, and I had to have surgery. So, you know, but thank you, and I give you guys a lot of support and really appreciate, and it is a volunteer job. So please be respectful of the school board and Dr. L'Souza. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Minati O'Connell from Chatham Borough. In a land of plenty, we forget to say how grateful we are. So I'm here tonight to say that I'm grateful to each of you for volunteering to be on the Board of Education. The past 2 years have been challenging for all of us. It's not an individual thing. To Dr. L'Souza, Karen Chase, Peter DeKilla, Beth Grant, and all the teachers and staff for giving my daughter a great education, and even more recently, given the unusual circumstances that we have been all enduring. Considering what is going on in the world and where I could be, I am so blessed that I have you guys to teach my daughter all the things that she needs to go out in the world in 2 years. Finally, I want to say that I support the policies that you have in place. I support the mask mandate, or whatever you want to call it, and keep each child, their teachers, their parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, brothers, and sisters safe. So thank you very much for all that you do. I really appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Nabil Moulin. I'm happy returning to Chatham after 2 years spent elsewhere. And just want to share with you anecdotes where we come back from. School started 3 weeks ago. There are no mask mandates, and 20% of the kids have already been traced. So it was the same last year. So the interruption and the disruption that creates for the education of the kids, of course nobody likes the masks, but choosing between that and allowing the kids to either attend in person or whatever the modality is, versus having to stay home because they were traced out. I think I very much prefer having the setup that we have here. So thank you, all of you, for keeping our kids safe, and thank you for the continued work you do for the community.
Hi, I'm Jim Lonergan. I've lived with my wife here in town for about 27 years. Positively, the vaccination rate in Chatham is off the charts. 97% in the borough, 88% in the township for adults, 81% for kids. That's an amazing feat, and I don't think there's many towns that can match that. Positive. I wrote a letter to the editor probably a month and a half ago, and I thanked the Board of Ed. I thanked the Board of Ed because I knew what they're going through. I run a business. I work with 350 other CEOs. We're dealing with it every day. We've gone through more consultations on how to deal with this. There's no easy answers. And I know they did a very good job. Nothing is perfect, but a very good job taking our kids through last year's school pandemic. right? They adjusted when they needed to, and they put it right back when it came back. That's why I love decisions being made here in Chatham locally, because you can adjust and move back quickly and act quickly. I don't like mandates made up in Trenton, because they don't move quickly and they don't have a lot of basis. They don't know that Chatham's got a 97, 88% rate. So that's my beef. My beef is, yes, I agree with the board. It's interesting to kind of listen to the crowd. They're supportive of the board because they do want masks on kids. This board has said pretty publicly, we'd rather make it optional, right? Let the parents decide. I'm in that camp. Reality is you've been hit with a mandate by the state, and there are consequences to it. I think the questions that have been asked are good questions, is what can you do? What can you do without putting the school, yourselves, at risk? What can you do legally? What can you do as a resolution to the state to show that we are vehemently against, or this board is very supportive of not mandates, but really let the town decide, let the parents decide. So I think they've made that very clear to all of us. So again, it's interesting to hear the crowds booing and clapping, because a lot of them don't want the mask, a lot of them do want the mask. So I just say, first and foremost, live in this town a long time. What I've seen this town change in the last 5 or 6 years is unbelievable. Why you're on this board, you don't get paid, you get thrown at, you get abused, it's terrible. Well, who wants to be on this board anymore, where this town has become what it's become, which is such a hostile environment? So I'd only recommend it. I thank Mike, I thank this board, I thank Peter, who I know there's so much done behind the scenes that has to happen to make this happen. I think you guys did a phenomenal job last year, and I know you're doing everything you can, but I would ask, what can you do, even if we have to follow the mandate, what can you do to fight Trenton on what they're doing to us? So that's what I would ask. That's my ask of the board. And again, thank you so much for what you've done. I implore you.
Hi there, I'm Madhu Kaur. I'm from the township. This is my first meeting. I usually don't attend these meetings. I wanted to first thank the board. I can't imagine it being easy up there, especially in the last, I would say, even a full year. Second, I want to thank the whole school district. I hope you guys can carry this down to the teachers, the custodians, to support staff, everyone possible. You guys were instrumental in me keeping my job last year, me and my husband as well. So I definitely want to thank you. I hope that trickles down to all the schools. My kids are in 2 different schools within the district, and I'm really happy that this year we can actually go back to full time. So I'm very grateful for that. I have one statistic and then 2 anecdotes to share. So the stat is that last year during this time when you guys were discussing the board, what school plans were, there were 300 cases per day of COVID within the state of New Jersey. Right now, it's about 5 times at the least. So just disparity between what it was last year, what it is this year, and I'm so glad that you guys are still pushing for the full day and the full 5 days a week. The other anecdote is that my daughter's teacher last year was pregnant, and she went on maternity towards the end of last year. I personally felt a responsibility, having been pregnant twice, having given birth to 2 kids, that I had a personal responsibility to make sure that I didn't put her at any more risk and her child than they need to be. And I think, and that kind of flows into my other anecdote, my personal workspace, I am not even allowed into the building without uploading my vaccine card. I am vaccinated. Nobody's allowed into the building, including custodians, anybody else as well. And even after that, we have to maintain distancing. We're not allowed to eat lunch at work, and we have to make sure we clean our cubicles when we leave. I can't imagine anybody subjecting a teacher to come into their workplace with 20 plus unvaccinated kids, especially the ones that are the age that can't be vaccinated, and forcing them to be in a room with maskless kids maskless people in general who are not vaccinated. I don't think that's fair. So I support the mask mandatory. I think I'm glad that I trust the school district to watch how the rates go up, watch how the vaccinations trickle down. Having more and more kids as vaccinated is even better. Having younger kids vaccinated is even better. But I think until then, we have a responsibility to our teachers and our support staff to make sure that they are safe. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sandy Bruce. I have a child in the high school. I've lived here since I was 8 years old. Raised 4 kids in this town, and I'm going to tell you, yes, we are all grateful. I'm grateful for our superintendent. I'm grateful for our Board of Ed. I'm grateful for our teachers. My feeling, though, is if you're not pushing back, if you're not letting the governor know that we don't agree with every child following the same protocol, no, you would not have a teacher, and I know this for a fact, there isn't a teacher in this school system that would take a child and use them as a shield if someone came in to do harm in the school. The children are not at risk. Sweden does not mask the children. They have not passed anything to their teachers. We're using our children as a shield for adults who are capable of wearing masks. You've got kids who are being told that if they're sick or if they have allergies, they should sneeze into the mask and keep it on all day. There are kids who say they're so afraid of getting in trouble that if they throw up, they leave the mask on. These are our kids. They're not at risk. It should be up to the parents. If the parents know their child has got something that is an immune issue, they should be allowed to wear a mask. No one's telling them not to. If the teachers are concerned even after being vaccinated, again, that's okay. They can wear a mask. It should be optional according to each their own, right? So the scientists are saying that they believe now that this is not droplets, this is aerosolized, right? If it is, the one scientist I was just listening to yesterday said, if you can take one of your hairs and slip it into your mask, then the virus can come in and come out like a freeway. They're not protected. And then we put up those big plastic partitions. Again, it keeps it inside the classroom. What you need to do is worry about the ventilation systems and change the circulation of the air in the schools if you're concerned. But don't risk the kids and have them keeping this on their face. How many kids, especially in the lower schools, going to the bathroom with a mask on and probably not cleaning their hands properly, touching it, now they've got probably excrement on their faces. They're playing outside and they've got this and they're touching their faces. It's not okay. I'd like to know if you did write to the governor and tell them how you felt, at any point did we ask them for pulmonary function tests with and without a mask? If it does compromise the kids, are there any studies? Do we know? Has anyone asked? They're wearing it all the time. Do you know that they say if they're wearing surgical masks, that if they get damp, they're supposed to discard it and get a new one? And that if they discard it, it's supposed to be in a Ziploc bag sealed and thrown in the garbage? Or do you have teachers checking every child to see if their faces are damp from sweat, which I know all 4 of my kids had that all the time. They're active.
Could you sum up, please?
I'm just asking you to please don't make decisions based on what our liability is. Make decisions based on what the best interests of our children are. Thank you.
I'm Larry Fechner. I live in Chatham Township. My daughter,
I'm sorry, before you start, can you repeat your name, please?
Larry Fechner. I live in Chatham Township. My daughter is no longer, but did attend school. I don't know what the board policy would be, but I work in a hospital. Basically, I'm a COVID doctor. I admit probably most of the COVID patients in our hospital. In March last year when we got it, I got out. When that started, about a couple weeks later, I got COVID, despite wearing the mask we had at that time. Got hospitalized. I was at work for a couple months. I'm sure everyone agrees that it's a serious illness, and you don't want to put people at risk when you can. Nevertheless, when I don't know what to tell the teachers, but I've been immunized. Nevertheless, I wear an N95 mask, and the mask I wear is a fitted mask. And people test to see whether I can smell anything. I've gone through several masks till I find ones that actually fit around. I'm not wearing one here, but in that area where I have high exposure, you really have to wear these fitted masks. It's not available to everyone. It certainly wouldn't be available to the teachers. So I just don't think you should think that the people who are working have the same protection that the first-line workers are because of our risk. Now, people are a lot of numbers. Luckily, children don't get infections very often. We have the immune illness. Luckily, that's rare. But you can see what the numbers are see the numbers, there are more infections in children. Luckily, it's still very uncommon. You know, I'd hate to be one of the pediatricians taking care of these children. It's tough enough. We've been doing this since last March. We were hoping it's over. It's not over. Why is it not over? Because not enough people are vaccinated, and probably other reasons. So the best way that you're really going to do is get rid of these masks, and the reason you want to get rid of the masks is you don't want children at risk, is going to be encouraging people to get immunized. I don't know who talked about those numbers. Those were great numbers in Chatham. You know, and if you could put a wall around Chatham, that would probably be great, and you could get rid of them too, like we'd want to, but that just doesn't seem to be the way it works. It's just an illness, really doesn't care what our politics are, really doesn't care about us. It is. It's like a flood or a famine. It's hard for us to deal with that. We live in a modern society used to not having it. I can certainly imagine people just not being able to accept that. So thank you. I apologize. I did not realize that my wife could not use my time. So if I could just have 10 seconds to make 2 quick points. The Health Department of Chatham, in association with Westfield, thought that the COVID-19 problem was so little that they have not updated the borough stats since May 27th, when the order by the governor was lifted for indoor masks. If you look today, those stats are updated. Why are they updated? Because I called them and asked them why they weren't updated. It's clear there is not a problem with COVID-19 in this town right now. And second of all, I appreciate that there are voices on both sides of this that have great points, and I respect their points. Can we put this to a referendum? Can we see what the town wants to do for our children? Thank you.
Great, thank you, everybody. This was great dialogue. I appreciate it. And thank you for the most part, everybody behaved. I know it's a passionate subject, so we're going to close this public commentary, and if I can just address at least a few items. Some of them overlap. Oh, you guys are leaving at the best part. So just a couple of comments. The one that's most prevalent is, I think Ms. Roberts and the gentleman that just spoke asked, and Mr. Lonergan all said, what can you do? What can you do? Pass a resolution, which was the original intent. But let me just read you one of the last sentences in executive order. No school district shall pass any resolution or any order which might or will in any way conflict with the provisions of the order, or which will or might in any way interfere or impede with its achievements. So we are not able to pass a resolution. It would be ineffective and against this order. And just a quick comment, we make probably hundreds of the decisions based on liabilities. It's just the nature of the school district. It's the nature of running a business. It's the nature of having 4,200 students and 600 staff in your building. We make decisions all the time based on liabilities. Middletown, Raz had mentioned something about Middletown. They have yet to open their district, so we'll wait and see how that goes. Consequences are significant. If they lose state aid, they won't be able to make payroll in September. So we'll keep an eye on Middletown and see how that unfolds. As of right now, though, we are prohibited from passing a resolution. Just have a few more notes here. What can we do? I had said at the beginning of the meeting, maybe some folks missed it, it would be helpful if you write Trenton. So what can we do? Again, I have to say, what can you do? Please, you write Trenton. You explain how the residents of Chatham feel. We've done a great job vaccinating. I mean, Mr. Lonergan just mentioned the stats. It's great. We have a few new cases. That's to be expected. Mr. Gilfillan has said for probably the better part of the year that we're going to have to think of figure out a way to live with this virus for some time. So it would be helpful if you write Trenton. You go there tomorrow, or you just write your legislator. There are 50 of you in this room. 50 letters to Trenton in either direction, right? Like, there's probably a split in the room on how folks feel about masks. At the end of the day, the board is going to do what keeps the children safe. The board is going to do what protects the town as a whole, and I mean financially. So we're going to do the best that we can. I don't think that you're going to agree with every decision, and that's, not unusual, not to be unexpected, or we expect that. So we appreciate, the passion. We appreciate you coming out tonight. But I don't have any additional comments. I don't know if Dr. LaSousa wanted to address anything, or, I'm sorry, Mike, before I pass it to you, since this is a board meeting, Mr. Ryan, I just want to give you an opportunity as the policy chair if you wanted to add anything, or...
Yeah, I mean, I think the dialogue tonight just shows everyone the impossible position we've been put in as a board, to have to balance, what each side of this argument believes is right. And we tried to do that this year. We absolutely had every one of the discussions, every one of the points that were brought up this evening, we had discussed in our various committees. I think we all wish that we had a little bit of an inch of leeway in that executive order, and we and our attorneys don't believe that we do.
Thanks, Mike. Dr. LaSousa, is there anything you wanted to add?
I can pick up on the, what can the board do or what can we do if it is the appetite of the board to do anything more. But obviously this summer, things have evolved quickly, and the conditions now are different than they were in June and were in May. But I've been in communication with probably 40 other superintendents in the past week, most of them through a county call that we had on Friday morning. And this issue has arisen, obviously, in every single Board of Education. There are other board meetings taking place right now where this same exact conversation is happening. The letters and the kinds of resolution, first of all, I'd say in Morris County, there's not a single district entertaining doing anything like what has been done in Middletown or in Wall or in a couple of other spots. And if you saw the governor's press conference today, he was asked about that and asked about what his administration's response would be to those communities, and he said something along the lines of his administration does not look favorably upon that, and his administration will respond accordingly. So the story isn't finished yet in terms of what goes on in those places. The types of letters and resolutions that some other districts in Morris County are considering are ones that express their board's belief that there should be some level of more localized data that enables boards to make decisions, that we have more data on a daily basis now from the CDC and the county view of Morris County than we had a year ago. We have vaccination percentages that are specific to every municipality that obviously we did not have a year ago. So the types of letters or expressions of what boards want are more in line with, this is what we believe. We believe that as the stewards of the community and as ones who have access to localized data from our local Department of Health, we should be given a little bit more latitude in terms of making decisions about the conditions in the school. So that is certainly an avenue to pursue if the board was of a like mind, or at least the majority of the board was of a like mind. And that's the one thing I just will pick up on from what you said about resolutions and such.
Mike, there's also a couple comments related to the Board of Health and, that we should follow the Board of Health. Can you just talk a little bit about not your relationship with the Board of Health, but how you interact with them on, daily, weekly, monthly basis as it relates to this pandemic, and specifically, policy setting?
Well, they're very responsive. Our local departments of health have been waiting for the updated guidance from the NJDOH. And the NJDOH guidance, the most recent, I think, still is May 23rd or May 20th, something like that. It was just this past Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, that the joint road forward, which is a product of the DOH, NJDOH, that is, /NJDOE, was updated to reflect the executive order and a few other items. So it's not like the Department of Health has had a lot of time to digest any of the, updates, but we have an ongoing dialogue all the time. That's going to ramp up now that we have schools in session again. And we can communicate with them regarding every case that we have in the district. I know 2 cases popped up today, so Karen Leister, our lead in this area, was working on that with the health departments.
Okay, great. And we can assess too, as the students are in school, we're trying to give them as many mask breaks as possible. September, we're hoping this is a short-term thing. September, they'll be outside as much as possible. Fortunately, this year, they can remove their masks while they're outdoors. Can they remove it during gym, Matt? Is that what you?
If they're involved in aerobic activity in a well-ventilated space, yes, we're going to try to move phys ed outside as much as possible while the weather's still good.
Yeah.
And outdoors, there's no issue with masking unless you're in a very, very crowded situation.
So let's try and maximize those opportunities, to ensure, I have to wear it 8 hours a day at work, but let's ensure that our students, particularly our younger students, we can maximize, mask breaks where possible and adjust and increase them as the need arises. Like you said, at one time, at one point last year, you said you're more concerned with their mental health than you are with their mathematics, so let's keep that in mind and give them as many mask breaks as possible without, interfering with, the day too much. I did not have any other comments. Did anybody else have anything they want to share? Thanks, Michelle, for helping out. I appreciate that. The school physician. There was a question about the school physician. Thank you. Whatever that was.
I don't know what specific criteria the school physician uses to assess whatever we move towards her, but we move any kind of health-related issue if it's staff-specific or student-specific through the school district physician.
Okay, excellent. We're not cutting out, that I've heard, we're not cutting out the board physician, so that will remain in place. Any other comments from the board? Nope. Everybody's good? Chris, you're good for now? Not good, but as good as you could be in your volunteer job. I'm thinking recess monitor might have been a better choice for us, but here we are. Okay, great. So we're going to move the regular action items. And just a reminder, these are posted on the website on Friday, so if it appears that we go through them a little quickly, you might want to stay for the finance one. There's a lot of good donations if you could hang in there. So we're going to move over to personnel first. Ann, would you mind?
I'd like to move action items A1 to A24 on the regular agenda, as well as A9, 11, 25, 26, 27, and 28 on the addendum.
Oof.
Yeah.
I second it. Just a quick comment, Ms. Grant, thank you and your staff. You're taking up half of the agenda. And I know it's been a particularly challenging couple of years, so thank you for your diligence. And again, anybody out there that's looking, if you're able to, maybe a niece, a nephew, a college student, if they're interested in maybe a para position or a sub position, please check out the website. Any additional questions on any of the personnel items? No. Peter, would you mind?
Sure, agenda items A1 to 24, and on the addendum 9, 11, 25, 26, 27, and 28. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Ms. Chigarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
I vote yes to all and abstain from number 2.
I'm sorry, abstain.
Number 2.
Okay. Mr. Del Sandro?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
With the exception of A2, everything passes 7-0. A2 passes 6-0-1.
Great, thank you, Peter. Matt, would you take us through finance and facilities?
Yes, I'd like to move action items B1 to 36 on your regular agenda.
I'll second that.
A number of donations. Chatham Athletic Boosters, 2 donations, the amount's about almost $5,900. Toward the subscription cost of the Huddle Video subscription, and then rental for the portable lights on Cougar Weekend. Acceptance from the Lafayette Avenue School PTO in the amount of $27,800 to refurbish the outdoor courtyard and install a paver patio. We must have the nicest outdoor facilities going on these days. Chatham Middle School PTO in the amount of $3,191 for a new sign at the auditorium. Donation from Leon, I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly, but Michaelis, of a 3D printer, and the Bank of America donation match of $750 for the superintendent to use as pleases. And then we spoke to the Chatham Performing Arts donation already. So thank you to everyone as per usual.
Yeah, thank you to all these donations. I mean, the passion, the conversation, the dialogue, it's all what makes Chatham great. Matt, you didn't note the Bank of America one is an increase. They bumped us up a little bit on the donation, so that's good. Any questions for Matt or anybody on finance and facilities? No, again, thank you everybody in the room, the community. I mean, we can't thank you enough for the assistance and helping the students and plugging some of those gaps. Peter?
Sure, agenda items B1 through B36. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Ms. Ciccarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Del Sandro?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items passed 7-0.
Excellent, thank you. Curriculum, Ms. Kenny?
I'd like to move action items C1 to C5 on the regular agenda for vote.
Any questions on the items that can be discussed in curriculum? Nope. Nope. Seeing none. Again, this month is always a heavy personnel agenda, less on some of the other items. Peter, would you mind?
Sure, agenda items C1 to C5. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Ms. Ciccarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Del Sandro?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items passed 7-0.
Excellent. Mr. Ryan, over to you for policy.
I'd like to move agenda items D1 and 2 on the regular agenda for a vote.
I'll second that. Any additional conversation? I wanted to thank Mike for moving the dress code the policy up to the 21st century. I think it was at circa 1950 before. So thank you for working on that. Any additional, you could look it up. Any additional questions or comments? Anything additional that any folks want to add? I know we've had a lengthy discussion already on the mask items. Mike, I just wish, just keep us informed as the situation changes and it evolves, and, we'll do the best we can.
Yeah, it's changing every day, so I would say hang in there.
And if you need to pull, 4 of us together for a policy meeting, then, as always, I know you do, but just a reminder. Excellent. Okay, so for those 2 items, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Duly noted, D1 and 2 passed 7-0.
Excellent, thank you. We have now board business. Does anybody have any board members have any items they want to bring up for board business? No, we don't have any adjustments to the calendar at this time, correct, Mike? Okay. Keep us posted on that, either for delayed openings or for any holidays that might pop up that the government hasn't told us about yet. Okay, so we have our second opportunity for public commentary. If you could just stand by 1 second. Mike, we do not have an executive session, correct? Excellent, very good. Okay, fantastic. So we have our second opportunity for public commentary. If you could introduce yourself, that would be great. And please adhere to the time limits as well. Thank you.
Libby Hilsenrath, Chatham Borough. Procedural question from the agenda section D, policy. Item number 1, approval of the first reading, second reading, and adoption of the policies that were just passed. Is it typical, I don't recall this in the past, that all in one meeting, a first reading, second reading, and adoption will happen? From what I've witnessed in the past, there would be a first reading at one meeting, and then at a subsequent meeting, there would be a second reading and adoption. But this does all 3 at one time, so I was hoping you could explain that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mark Lewis, Chatham Township. Many months ago, Dr. Lususa sent us an email informing us that he had reread Night, the Elie Wiesel autobiography recounting the horrors of Nazi tyranny and death camps. A summary of Dr. Lususa's email about the rereading might be, have gratitude, and with awareness for others that they have endured hardships that defy description. Elie Wiesel's book is firmly in the canon of literature and undergirds our Western culture. At an age-appropriate point, every child should read it. Thank you, Dr. LaSousa, for pointing us to this during the pandemic. Gratitude is a pervasive message in the book, but not the sole message. This morning, Dr. LaSousa's email distributed to every parent in Chatham schools. At the end of the email, he recounts multiple situations where he disagrees with the rules and requirements that affect our children. He equates these many rules and requirements to the Executive Order 251, and in that, while it's wrong for our children, together we all silently further these rules and endure their effects. Mrs. Peterson spoke, and there's no shortage of children and families suffering from the mask mandates. Those that may be able to find a doctor to accurately capture their suffering also face rejection by the school's physician. Dr. LaSousa was right to bring Wiesel's book to our attention. Consider his words regarding suffering, because that's the other message in this book. From the book, they are committing the greatest indignity human beings can inflict on one another, telling people who have suffered excruciating pain and loss that their pain and loss were illusions. Human suffering anywhere concerns men and women everywhere. We have to stop the torment of these children whose health is affected by the masks. You have that ability even under Executive Order 251, because your policy is created with additional requirements that are not in EO 251. Accept EO 251 as written without adding to it. Silently furthering by policy is not an option. Wiesel never said speaking out would be risk-free. He said, I swore never to be silent whenever and wherever human beings endure suffering and humiliation. We must always take sides. Indifference to me is the epitome of evil. We must take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Those who keep silent yesterday will remain silent tomorrow, and one person of integrity can make a difference. Wiesel doesn't say integrity is convenient. You can't act in a primary consideration of your job or your license or your seat on a volunteer board and maintain integrity. Our primary consideration must be affected students. This board has stated publicly the majority of members support a mask optional environment. The decision before you was even more narrow and even more simplified. Do you support a mask optional environment for just those students whose health is affected, as in EO 251? The answer to the broader question is already public. You have said yes. Now you've given us your answer to the more refined question, and as a resident, I'm disappointed.
Hi, I'm Catherine Fouché. I'm a Chatham Borough resident. And I just want to go back to Kyle's question, and it's a very simple question. June 21st, Mr. Gilfillan and Ms. Weber both said that they would endorse sending a resolution to Governor Murphy stating that we want mask optional. We brought it up again on July 12th, and I just want to know, have you sent that note to Governor Murphy? Have you made your position clear? And if not, why not? And if not, when will you do so? As Dr. LaSousa just said, that is in your power to make that clear to Governor Murphy. Thank you.
Jane Devlin. I respect the gentleman right before me who just spoke attempt to use Wiesel's comments to illustrate his point, and I have a long history of valuing speaking up and speaking out against social injustices. But that said, I could not remain seated in my chair here without commenting that we should not equate mask wearing by children or adults, regarding which side of the matter we are on, to the Holocaust suffering and sufferers. Again, I realize he was trying to make the point, but it was, I think, just stretching it a bit too far. Thank you again.
Thanks. Are there any other public comments? Oh, Mr. Heap's coming down. Hang on. For the audience watching at home, there's one more gentleman. I'm stalling for you, Bill.
Okay. Bill Heap, Chatham Borough. I love public meetings. Thank you for having meetings even during the pandemic. That's what community is all about. I want to thank you for keeping the schools open. That is the most important thing that we can do. As far as the mask fight goes, I really don't have a dog in this fight. My kids are out. I am very much in favor of local control, and when the facts on the ground dictate that we can go without masks, I think we ought to take them off. Everybody will be happy with that. I'm not sure that we should let Trenton dictate to us what they feel is right. And the last thing is, I would urge all of my fellow residents to stay off social media. I have told you this before. I will repeat it. It is the single most corrosive thing that has happened to our society. And it turbocharges, it just turbocharges issues like this. People should come to public meetings to express their views and not do it sitting behind a keyboard. It turns into nothing but a junior high school food fight. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. Seeing no other public commentary, Mr. Gilfillan, did you want to make a comment?
Oh.
You don't have to. I mean,
I'll read it.
you can read it again. I thought I read it.
No, we did read it. I think we've made it pretty clear verbally. Ed, you're more than welcome to write this on the patch tomorrow, or whatever, a tap, I forget whichever one. Excuse me on that one. That being said, no, we did not write an actual letter or resolution, but we all have publicly stated our opinions on this. To follow up with a number of comments today, I too am tired of listening to Trenton and people above us constantly taking away our freedoms as an individual district to make our own policy decisions. But unfortunately, that's the world that we live in. You know, we were not elected to represent anybody but the students of Chatham. Unfortunately, those rights are constantly taken away from us. So, but that being said, resolution right now is not in something that we can do, quote unquote, from the executive order. No municipality, county, or any other agency or political subdivision of the state shall enact or enforce any order, rule, regulation, ordinance, or resolution which will or might in any way conflict with any of the provisions of this order, or which will or might in any way interfere with or impede its achievement. So unfortunately, we are not able to write that resolution, but I believe we are all allowed to publicly state our opposition to this mask mandate. And I will reiterate my public opposition, but that being said, in consideration of that, the support of this policy today was in the best interest and flexibility of our children. Ed, more than welcome to write that out. I oppose it personally, not everyone on this board. I'm not speaking for everyone on this board, but we did what we believe is in the best interest of the children at this moment.
Okay, so that answers that last question. We're prohibited from writing a resolution. Sorry, Libby, I'm going in reverse order. The gentleman that questioned our integrity, that's slightly insulting. If we were indifferent, we wouldn't be sitting here. Our integrity is squarely intact, but we have a responsibility to do what's best for the school, the town, and that includes making decisions based on liabilities. So backing up, so Ms. Hilsenrath, I'm going to answer your question as best I can. In some instances, and I'm going to ask Mike Ryan or Peter too. Oh, you want to answer it, Mike? Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. I should give it to the chair. Nick, could you turn on Mr. Ryan's microphone?
Can you hear me? Yes, Ms. Hilsenrath, you're correct. It isn't typical that we have a first, second, and third reading so quickly. However, in this case, we did have 2 committee meetings before this meeting, and we wanted to get the policy drafted and approved before the start of school so that we can have a less restrictive policy when school starts. Otherwise, school would have started and we would have been governed by the policy that we drafted last year. So that's why, in this case, it was a little bit quicker than we normally would do it, but we did it to get a less restrictive policy on the books before school started. Hope that helps.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you. Okay, does anybody else have any comments on comments? Well, I think that's a wrap then. So our next meeting, I think, is mid-September. Hopefully we'll have more to talk about. Hopefully we'll have more local control as we all want. We don't know what that will look like, but thank you everybody again for coming out. I think this is a fantastic dialogue, again, regardless of which side of the argument you fall on. So thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming out. Thanks for hanging in there, those that were able to hang